Welcome to the British History Podcast Wrap-Up Show. I am Benjo.
I am B, and we are a team, but this is my producer, Benjo. Benjo,
And co-host.
and co-host. Co-host, of course, but the producer, Benjo. We already recorded this episode, but the battery died, so that was frustrating, right?
What battery is your phone on now?
What?
Is your phone fully charged now?
Yeah, it's good now,
Are you
but
sure?
yeah.
Okay.
But we were mentioning when we last recorded it that we've had Thanksgiving. Had a bunch of family over, had a gig. What else has been going on? Just
Christmas.
prepping for Christmas. Did I lose you there for a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Got lost in the sauce.
Well, we're gonna pick up this pace.
Christmas parade.
Christmas parade. Oh my gosh. Vegas. We went to Vegas.
I didn't go
Mom
with
and I
us.
did.
They saw Larry Fitzgerald and Armani Edwards and Julius Peppers.
Yeah. The list went on and on. So Benjo, we are on
Season 1, Episode 18. Abandonment and reoccupation.
abandonment and reoccupation. Benjo, when we last left off, we were discussing how Antonine had
Oh,
completed.
I thought we were discussing the advancement and occupation.
Well, that's what this episode's about. Okay.
Wait, no, I was talking about.
Oh, we did advancement and occupation of the Antonine Wall. Okay, that was season 1, episode 17.
Wait, what's going on with 16 and 17? Like, why are they just chilling right there?
16 we had to skip season 1 because it was a sneak peek of a members only episode.
What about 17?
We did season 1, but I wrote it on a different notebook. It's a whole thing.
That's
right?
very weird.
Yeah. Anyway, we had previously discussed Antonine completing the wall that was north. So when I'm doing this, I'm going. When I go up, I'm going north. When I go down, I'm going south. Right. So we had Hadrian's Wall right here, which is, as I understand it, generally near the modern day border of England and Scotland. Then, and that was built in like 122. And for 12 years, between 142 and 154, they built the Antonine Wall way up in Scotland. And so, let me make sure. Can you still hear me? We talked about how England kind of,
I can't hear you.
Britain kind of goes up like this, like this. So Hadrian's Wall was built over a longer area. When you go up further north, it tapers up. So Antonine Wall was built across a smaller area, right?
I hope you heard him there, because if not, you just saw him drawing lines. It looked a little confusing. But if you did hear him, it was some great info.
So they spent 12 years there, and then how long do you think they occupied after they?
4 years.
4 years. You know that because we already.
No, I just know that.
You just know that. So they were there from 154 to 158. It just seems crazy you'd spend that much time and energy and only initially occupy it for 4 years. Jamie talks about he gets back into speculation about the Ninth Legion. What happened to the Ninth Legion? You remember that?
The mystery of the Ninth Legion, they disappeared.
Does that still bother you? You still wonder every day about what happened to the Ninth Legion?
It's like a itch that I can't reach every day.
Right.
I'm just
wondering what happened to that
stresses
Ninth
me.
Legion.
I sleep insomnia because of it.
So anyway, about 158, the Romans pulled back from Antonine Wall and they went back to Hadrian's Wall, which was longer and harder to defend, right? So Jamie started in on here's some theories of what happens, but why they did this. But there was really only one theory. There was a theory that there was some type of Roman military defeat by the northern Britons, and he theorized that Governor Verus, there's a Governor Verus and then an Emperor Verus.
Are they related?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But that his withdrawal was from Antonine back to Hadrian's Wall was not popular with Emperor Antonine, but it was unlikely that he would have done something that big without emperor approval, you know. But at the same time, can you imagine how long if they wanted to do that and they had to wait for permission? You'd have to send a letter to Rome, wait months for to get to get a response back.
Yeah, terrible.
I mean,
terrible communication technology, transportation. Sorry, that's the word. Terrible transportation back then.
Transportation and communications. Communications because of in large part because of transportation. But I mean, it's not like
and technology.
Technology.
That all goes into technology.
It does. You're so right. But then, so they abandoned it about 158. Then they re-advance and reoccupy Antonine Wall in 160. So they just back up for 2 years. Then they go back up north in 160, and they stayed there only, it sounds like only about 3 years, because in 161 Emperor Antoninus died, right? And he was only supposed to be, he was kind of older. You remember that? He was kind of older when he became emperor, and he wasn't supposed to be emperor for very long. He was really just supposed to keep the seat warm for Marcus Aurelius until he came of age.
Yeah.
But he ended up being one of the longest serving emperors since Augustus. Caesar Augustus?
Augustus Caesar.
Augustus Caesar. Who was?
Julius Caesar's nephew.
Right. Look at you. Cheers. Oop.
Oh, I'm sorry. That might have really messed up y'all's sound there.
So anyway, Emperor Antoninus dies in 161, and he had promised Emperor Hadrian that he was going to adopt Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus. And so when he died, those two kind of became co-emperors. But it was clear that Marcus Aurelius was really the main emperor, and Lucius Verus was like a junior emperor, right?
Yeah.
Remember Lucius Verus had a neck beard and quit doing that.
Oh, my fault.
Had a neck beard and an afro.
Oh, I feel like that would be kind of weird back then.
Yeah. But Marcus Aurelius was a philosopher, right?
Yeah.
But he didn't really have a lot of time to philosophize. Emperor Antoninus had mostly a peaceful reign, but Emperor Marcus Aurelius, he had to deal with uprisings on the continent. Germania, Parthia, Caledonia.
Parthia.
Yeah.
That rings a bell.
The continent.
That rings a bell. The Parthenon.
Yeah, we got to look up exactly where Parthia and Caledonia was. I want to say at least one of those is Greece, and one, and maybe northern Africa. God, I should know this.
Hey, well, when we get a map over there,
right?
You just picture it right here. This is what it's gonna look like. Pop, but you will be seeing it up there. But real life, not animated.
So I was telling you last time that we're going to start talking about some stuff on the continent. We're not always talking about directly on the island of Britain right now, but it's going to directly affect what's going on there. So hang tight. So anyway, these wars that Emperor Marcus Aurelius had to fight outside of Britain in the empire were some major engagements. So Britain kind of took a back seat for a while. And not that it wasn't a big deal, but they had to kind of demilitarize parts of Britain so that they could fight these wars they needed to fight elsewhere in the empire. And so Statius Priscus became governor after the death of Governor Verus. And Statius Priscus was known for dealing with rebellions. And so he was put in charge because he's... Go ahead.
They took troops from along wall to defend these more dangerous troops. The
more dangerous threats.
Oh.
Yeah. I talked about that kind of already, how they took some troops from Britain. But so anyway, when Emperor Antoninus died, and by 163 they moved back again to Hadrian's Wall. At this point, it was reoccupied at a lesser rate. And so, you think about all these troops being on the wall. Well, eventually these troops are going to need food, and they're going to need clothes, and they're going to need goods. And so what pops up around there?
Water.
Water.
You said food and goods.
But they needed merchants, right, to make these things. So little towns began to pop up along Hadrian's Wall.
City-states?
No. Oh. I'm talking about little towns along Hadrian's Wall where the they when they moved back from the Antonine Wall, they eventually kind of demilitarized because along the walls it was like forts and troops everywhere. Well, they still had some of those, but it became more demilitarized. And so while you still had troops, you had churches even. You had and they
hospitals?
Were hospitals. I'm sure you had all kinds of these things. And so these religious buildings, we call them churches, religious buildings of some sort, likely for for worshiping local British gods or Roman gods. And the Romans would still at least occasionally engage in battles in the north of the wall, you know. But by 166, Governor Stratius Priscus was recalled to Rome. And after that, we know very little about the governors of Britain for about the next 10 years.
There's just like here goes that and here goes that.
Right.
The timeline just like took a little pause.
Yeah, because you know.
Speaking of timelines, we were talking about making timeline too, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
we were talking about how you know a lot of these things from either the inscriptions they left on the walls, or from recorded Roman history, and I'm sure archaeology too. You know. But anyway, 169, co-emperor Verus dies, leaving just Emperor Marcus Aurelius as the only emperor. And so he had to go to present-day Germany to deal with the revolt by himself, right? And he was, because he was concerned he may not return from Germany alive, he actually bucked the trend of, I guess, having Senate-approved successor named, and he named his son the co-emperor, Commodus. You remember Commodus?
Yeah.
When we talked about him in the episode, we got cut off on. And so Emperor Marcus Aurelius had educated Commodus, gave him responsibilities, and for when he was gone, in case he didn't come back. And in fact, that's what happened. Marcus Aurelius goes to fight in Germany along the Danube River, and he died of the plague in 180.
So the plague, fun fact here, started by like insects, gnats or something, flies. And then they infected rats. And then those rats like got into the waters or infected people or something.
Right.
But I might be talking about a different plague.
Well, I think you're talking about the bubonic plague or the Black Death that happened about 1,200 years later after this, 1,100 years later.
A lot of plagues.
But I'm sure plagues kind of happen similarly, you know, and now it's transmitted from small insects to humans.
Another fun fact. I think Al Capone died of the plague.
No, he died of syphilis.
Oh.
Close.
I swear he died of the plague.
But I'm not a epidemiologist, historian, but I believe there's been plagues throughout history. So, you know, we know the famous one,
bubonic.
you know, like 800 years ago, but which wiped out like a third of Europe. But anyway, around this time, a group of Britons crossed the defensive wall, which they just mentioned a wall. We think it's likely Hadrian's Wall, and killed one of those at the time unknown governors of Britain. And so there must have been a continued rebellion in most of Britain, as these areas, like these troops, they're kind of there by themselves. I mean, you know, the emperor is back in Rome, and they start building walls around towns to protect themselves, the legion troops.
Yeah.
and then some of the legion troops are kind of rebelling themselves. So it sounds like there's just, I don't know, anarchy is the right word, but just, you know, general lawlessness in Britain, in
Yeah.
Roman Britain. And around this time, Commodus is going from, he started off as really moderate to being tyrannical. You know what I mean? Like he sounded like he was generally um, understanding, from what I understand, to being really strict. Um, and you know, at this time, we talked about how at this point the Roman legions in Britain, they had not just been in Britain for a few years; they'd been there for like 150 years. So these Roman legions, they're like probably at this point maybe fourth generation. And you know, some of these, I mean, most of these people had never been to Rome.
Yeah.
You know, they were born and raised in Britain. Their parents have been born and raised in Britain. Maybe even their grandparents. It was their great grandparents that maybe came from Rome. And so that just the ties to Rome lessened, and they became more assimilated into British culture. Um, and Commodus was, I guess there was just, there were, you know, the ties to Rome were lessening, and the legions in Britain were probably annoyed. So Commodus irritated the legions by naming Pyrinus, a praetorian who was a praetorian prefect. Do you remember what a praetorian prefect is? The elite, the elite troops that protect the emperor.
Oh yeah.
So Pyrinus was a praetorian prefect, so that Commodus could, well, Commodus put him in charge, and
Yeah.
Commodus just went and kind of was lazy.
Oh, speaking of lazy, whoever named Pyrinus.
Pyrinus. So then Pyrinus replaced the governor of Britain with Ulpius Marcellus, who was incorruptible, which means
Not able to be bribed.
correct, very strict, and
Too strict, way insanely too strict.
Right. Like some strictness is good for, you know, military, but if you're too strict, you're going to become unpopular. And so um, Commodus, even though he was lazy, he authorized a punitive campaign against the rebelling Britons in southern Scotland, and they likely even went so far to punish these rebels to go north of the Antonine Wall, which is pretty far up in there. And it sounds like they were successful, because in 184 they, what did they do to commemorate back then when they were commemorating a victory, or at least trying to um, claim
they
that
minted gold.
Right. They struck coins, and the coins basically were commemorating a legion victory. Commodus claimed the title of Britannicus, which was governor of all of the island of Britain, but that was likely just a claim, right? Because I mean, there's some
Likely.
islands way up there, like the Orkney Islands in Scotland, that I mean, they could never claim to have, you know, have conquered, right? You know, they
Yeah,
could
but
never
I
get there.
mean, miracles happen.
Miracles do happen, you know, because anything's possible.
It's Christmas miracles.
So following this little victory, Governor Marcellus was recalled to Rome. I told you he was a strict disciplinarian, and intolerable of any lack of discipline. But he was accused of treason. We're not sure what that treason was, but so the legions, they got kind of a big head,
Morale boost.
a morale boost by ejecting him, getting him.
Kind of looks like you put E18.
Yeah. And so they were
They're
so
getting cocky.
they were so like cocky by boosting him. What'd they do?
And then they got even more cocky and they dropped Pyrinus.
So they sent 1,500 troops to Rome to discuss with Commodus Pyrinus, right? And so what did Commodus drop Pyrinus like a hot potato?
Yes.
And so these Romano-British legions their morale. They had just deposed Marcellus or had him recalled, and then they just got they got Perinas dropped. So they are cocky now, buddy.
Ooh, they got a big head.
Stay tuned for season 1, episode 19. What happens next?
I've been Benjo.
I've been B. Benjo.
We've been
the British History Podcast Wrap-Up Show. Boom.
Boom.
Complete.